And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Our series on abuse of power continues tonight. Mar-a-Lago was inappropriately raided, we know that, but it's not an uncommon tactic by a politicized DOJ to do what they did. Tonight we're looking over at the overly aggressive nature of the DOJ and the FBI when they target somebody who happens to have the wrong politics, and why the mission must be accomplished, facts be damned, a mentality that permeates through Washington whenever they consider Donald Trump or his brand of populism. A CNN interview from 2019 perfectly sums up how the establishment powers in this country view Donald Trump and the people around him. A network contributor working to temper expectations for CNN viewers because of the likelihood that Bob Mueller's investigation was going to end up being a flop, which of course it was. Garrett Graff, a former Politico editor, moving the network's neurotic, Trump-deranged viewers away from the criminal realm and massaging the idea that Trump deserves to be destroyed even if he's committed no crime because his politics are just so bad. Take a look.
So far, he's been totally focused on what we might call criminal crimes. There's a whole voluminous amount of things that may not be a technical federal crime, but are still things that we don't want in American politics. And this is something that Sally Yates, the former Deputy Attorney General, has been talking about, that there's sort of a lot of stuff that may not be technically criminal, but is still stuff we don't want a presidential campaign engaged in.
That is the perfect soundbite to summarize what's happening right now. Oh, it's not a crime, but we just don't want this in American politics. We can't have this. D.C. doesn't like it. So what's he talking? Is he talking about things like hiring a foreign spy to dig up fake information about your political opponent, pushing the DOJ to use that fake foreign material to spy on your opponent? Well, no, he's not talking about that. That's what Hillary did. That's, of course, no big deal. So those kind of politics he can allow, and the establishment can allow. Can you see how transparent these people are? Stuff that's not criminal, but activity they simply don't like. They just don't like his politics. So as we move away from the criminal realm, because Bob Mueller couldn't find anything, we just look for something else. And that comment from him delineates exactly what this is all about. Trump is just awful. He can't lead this country. That's the mentality. Last week, this moment from Newsmax went viral. It was all over the country, and it was very easy to see why. Take a look.
Is this unprecedented to arrest a former president for not turning in documents?
The former president that had committed this many provable criminal acts.
But what are the provable criminal acts, I guess?
Provable criminal acts. Well, I'm done talking.
It's too perfect, isn't it? Okay, fine, he hasn't done anything illegal. Fine. He's just a horrible person. This is how it is. This is what they think. And this is, that's all of them. Talk to any of them. That happens. In that CNN rant that we played, Garrett Graff, the same guy, mentions Sally Yates and uses her as a crux of credibility for his argument. Okay, so who's Sally Yates? Well, for a short period of time, Yates was Trump's acting attorney general. She was the leftover deputy AG under Obama. And as expected, it was a disaster when she worked under Trump. Yates was the one who got Michael Flynn on the Logan Act for speaking with the Russian government before Trump's term had technically begun, which is a crime, by the way, that is committed constantly in Washington, is never enforced, though. It was even committed by John Kerry during the Trump administration, working to save the Iran deal as Trump was ripping it apart. He actually committed it in a very serious way. Nobody cared. Yates' other big moment, though, was when Trump announced his now infamous Muslim ban. Remember that. Yates refused to uphold or defend it as the acting attorney general, and that ended up getting her fired by Donald Trump. Remember, she was an Obama appointee. But was the Muslim ban really a Muslim ban, or was it just common sense? Trump didn't ban people from every Muslim-majority nation, just nations that are a total mess. Terror hotspots at a time when terrorism in this country was scary and we had problems. Countries that have no clue who they're sending to the United States. Well, of course, that was too much for liberal elites like Sally Yates. America must keep up the appearance of being egregiously open to immigrants, even if it makes us more prone to terror attacks. Virtue signaling is at the top of the disaffected, out-of-touch D.C. insider list of priorities. National security, oh, that's somewhere way down here. The border wall, exactly the same story. This country cannot be led by somebody who has an inherent problem with unmitigated Central American migration. This is America. It's the wealthiest country in the world. And we must be led by somebody willing to let this nation be invaded, extorted, and exploited in every manner possible. That's why they love Joe Biden so much. That's exactly what he does. Joe Biden just opens this whole country up. Anybody need anything? We got it. And you pay for it. Fighting back against that mentality is despicable by their standards. And although it's not illegal to stop America from self-sabotage, it's not. It's utterly infuriating to the open border globalists who have control of Washington, D.C. And what happens when these people get really mad? Well, of course, they weaponize the federal government. And tonight we look at what government is capable of in that moment, even in a country as stable as the United States. And we start with Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign chairman, who was charged with acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign government, a crime they allege he committed before Donald Trump even announced his candidacy for president. The FBI used the Steele dossier to get a FISA warrant, tapped Manafort's phone, got to listen to all the conversations with Trump and everybody else. Then they raided his home. And when they found nothing pertaining to Trump or Russian collusion, well, they charged him with a years-old crime and threw him in solitary confinement because they could. Manafort was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. And Paul Manafort joins us now to talk more about this. And, sir, it's good to have you on tonight. Did your experience teach you a lesson about what our government is actually capable of?
Well, yeah, it did that. I mean, I always lived by the law books, what the law books taught me, which was that the system was fair, the scales of the justice were balanced, and everybody was treated the same, regardless of any issue. I was wrong. This deep state was very frightened of Donald Trump, and they did everything they could to try and destroy him. And people like myself and Roger were means to that end, where they came after us to try and get us to capitulate and give them Donald Trump, which neither of us would do because it wasn't true.
Yeah, well, not that you wouldn't do it, you couldn't do. You couldn't even possibly do it if you wanted to because they didn't have the goods. You know, it's interesting. You were put in solitary for a time, which was a move so bold, even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was critical of your time in solitary confinement. She tweeted this in 2019, Paul Manafort is being sent to solitary confinement in my district, Rikers Island, here in New York. A prison sentence is not a license for government torture and human rights violations. That's what solitary confinement is. Manafort should be released along with all people held in solitary. I mean, it's staggering to see. I mean, you would never expect support from somebody like that, but that's how overt it was. What happened to you, that's how obvious the abuse of power was.
Yes, that's exactly right. And in my book, that's what I talk about. I go through the details of why the deep state didn't like Trump, what they were trying to do to Trump, how they were using the Justice Department and the law enforcement and national security agencies to go after Trump, and why I was targeted for that purpose. I go into the details, and it's an ugly story, and it's one that I talk about. Americans have to be careful of, because even though I was a target, Roger was a target, Navarro was a target, Trump is a target, they're really going after the American people and trying to force them into either, silently letting them do what they want with power, or joining their cause. And it's something we can't let happen.
How do you see the problem inside the FBI? I mean, we say it all the time, but obviously there's a lot of law enforcement love for Trump. There's a lot of people in the FBI that are patriots in this country that don't support what's happening. We know there's a lot of support from the rank and file and a lot of people against this. How do you view the problem?
Well, look, I think if the agents are seeing what's going on and they're being quiet, then they're guilty by complicity. I mean, they have to rise up. They have to be whistleblowers. They have to, expose the corruption in their ranks, or they're a part of the corruption. And right now, Christopher Wray and the leadership of the FBI is as committed to justice as Jim Comey was and his regime, which is not very much. I think it's very important that FBI agents, because there are good ones there, not feel coward and know that there are support on the outside if they will stand up. It's also important for Republicans to take over the Congress and to make sure that the members of the FBI understand that they will be rewarded for exposing the corruption, not punished for it.
Understood. Paul Manafort, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.